Hey, Nikki.
Hey, Salina.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to Sweet Tea and TV. Let's see if I can make it through this episode. We'll just call season 7 the one where Selena had a cold the entire time. You can track it through the phases.
That's true. That's a good point.
So I'm going to be attempting not to have a coughing attack, and I'm just going to be honest about it. So if there's a weird cut, you can hear right here from the top that I may or may not have an eyeball pop out from coughing.
Well, the good news is we've got your mic set to the right mic now, so your audio sounds fantastic.
So good.
You've got your hot tea. We're
Mhm.
gonna do great.
Mhm.
It's gonna be fantastic.
And I just took up an entire bottle of honey, so if I have to just be like,
Lord have mercy. Oh no.
just pour it right down the gullet. Anyways, it's not about me. It's not about honey. It's about Carlene. That's what this is about.
Sweet like honey, our dear Carlene is, isn't she?
Yes, and apparently, according to designing women, only good when used in extreme moderation.
Very small doses, because we, just like with Bernice, we only got 2 episodes this season that were Carlene focused. So we had episode 2, Sex and the Single Woman. This is the one where Dwayne Dauber rears his ugly head again, and Carlene takes advantage, which causes Anthony to have to buy new sheets and furniture and maybe like a whole new apartment.
That was all very sexual. Go on.
Just it is what it is, Selena. You heard
That's
the
right.
title of the episode.
I did.
And then we had episode 10, The Lying Game. In this one, we get Carlene dating a dude. He's perfect, and so are his wigs, heels, and dresses, which she learns about because Julia and BJ decide to poke around in their relationship after they fear he's married.
Yeah.
Did I miss any?
No, I think you got those 2 all fair and square.
Well, we do have a few plot points to talk about. Selena, you pointed out that most of her plot points this season are continuations of season 6. And we've also talked, I think maybe in episode 1, about how her character was just super scaled back this season. It's clear with Sex and the Single Woman that she's still sifting through her divorce with Dwayne Dauber. But by the end of the season, so episode 20, again, The Lying Game, she's back in the dating world. She's going through single womanhood. And as she's going through single womanhood, she is, as BJ put it in episode 2, becoming a man. So that was after she described the power she felt seducing Dwayne, paying for his dinner, and forcing him to twirl around, removing clothes for her pleasure. And then, of course, she gives us the full male treatment in episode 10 when she tries on being a dude for a day or so. In a couple of episodes, including Sex and the Single Woman and On the Road Again, we learn that she's still hacking away at school. That's still a thing we're doing. And then finally, I would say that she's still carrying the water of being our cultural touchstone in the series, which is a mantle that she picked up effectively from Charlene. She's like the squidgy starter, the chain letter sender. She's always the one that's in the pop culture world for us.
Oh, that's fair. I was trying to push the chain letters out of my head. That is the thing that happened.
Like a lot. It was a big subplot in that episode. Were there any other plot lines that I missed, Selena?
I think you covered it beautifully.
Thank you. So we're calling our Carlene season 7 adventures Hot Pants and Cockfights No More.
Okay, good. We never really talked about that one. I just kind of snuck her in there.
Found it in a document somewhere, so it is what it is.
It sounds great.
Perfect. We didn't have a lot of great lines to pull from.
It was tough, And on that note, character superlatives, it may have made it tough to find a best and worst episode. So what is your best Carlene episode?
So I went with episode 2, Sex and the Single Woman. Didn't have a lot to work with for Carlene this season, but of what we had, I liked this episode probably the most. I liked watching her get some power over Dwayne and sort of watching that power wash over her as the episode went along. Then, of course, her moral compass tugs her back to the straight and narrow, but not before she's had a little bit of fun. I also liked having Mary Jo normalize what Carlene's going through because Mary Jo was there with Ted too. So it was kind of a continuation of that special kinship that Carlene and Mary Jo have over being divorced and being single women and that sort of thing. I loved the runner about her and Dwayne being naked on Anthony's sheets. It was one of my favorite parts of the whole season, which I probably should have mentioned in episode 1, but I really remembered it going back through this episode. It was also delightful watching BJ get increasingly fed up with the fixation on this issue.
Yes.
So at first she's like so patient. She's like, "Here, take my card, get you some good sheets." The next time he brings it up, she says, "Anthony, here's my card. Go get yourself a whole trousseau and give it a rest." And then by the end, she's like straight up giving him a psychiatrist referral because of his whole fixation. And then I feel like I personally identified with Anthony because once something happens to me, moving on is very challenging for me. So there
Mhm.
was something very real about all of that.
Mhm.
And then we also got the women all sharing the men they're attracted to, but just can't explain it, like Fidel Castro, Jerry Lee Lewis, and not Gumby, but Billy Graham.
It was a pretty good little list.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
I
about
mean, that's much more interesting than like obviously hot people. Like,
yeah,
oh, you know,
right.
you think
You can't
that
even think of one, can you?
no, well,
Really
I could only
nervous.
think of women. So but it's fine. Oh, you think Gal Gadot is hot? Oh, well, so does everyone on the planet. So it's much more fun. The Gumby thing's different.
I don't know. It kept coming back to him.
Well, so my best was I'm glad we're covering all the bases here. Mine was episode 16, The Lying Game. It's true we didn't have a lot to go on with Carlene this season, but I do think this was a great episode for her. I did share early on that there were issues for me with this episode, but I think that she really shined here. She does that naive Bambi in the woods so well. Like when she comes in and Eric is dressed as a woman and BJ keeps explaining what's happening and asking her if she understands, and her no each time is just really fabulous. Jan Hooks's comedic timing is also impeccable. So I just thought it was such a perfect choice and so within the bounds of Carlene's character to have her subsume all of that, how to be like a man guidance from the other ladies, and then turn it right around on the guy trying to underbid sugar bakers. And I really like that this also felt like, you were talking about her being the person who's the most in touch with pop culture. That harkens back to Charlene. There is something about this plot line that also feels like it would happen to Charlene.
Mhm.
And I really like that because it makes me like feel a little like, oh, Jean Smart, she's somewhere out there. But both of these characters are often underestimated and sometimes written off as not being very smart, but they really shouldn't be. So it's perfect that Carlene is the one that actually gets this guy to go $15,000 over what they normally charge. And I do mean Mr. Carl Lean. So.
I think I misnumbered this episode a minute ago. I called it episode 10. I think you're right. It's episode 17. Sorry, guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't notice either one of those things. So
Excellent.
when you're really honed in on trying not to cough, it's amazing
Are
what
you
just
having
doesn't
to like
matter.
meditate on that?
Yeah, just
Singularly focused.
I keep going all the way
The
just
mind
deep
body
in.
connection, your mind to your throat muscles.
It feels super connected right now. Like someone, like my mind's just been slapping the crap out of my throat. Feels so good. What about your worst Carlene episode?
I'm going to do something horrible and not pick one because I think The Lion Game was uh, my least favorite of our two Carlene episodes, but to call it like the worst is harsh. I thought everything you just said is good and it was a fine episode. So I feel bad picking a worst episode for her.
Well, I got to tell you, I didn't pick one either.
Oh my
That's
God,
so weird.
isn't that
Yeah.
weird?
So
I
I
thought you were looking at me annoyed because we're only 9 minutes in and we're halfway through the episode.
I'm like, done. That's not our fault. So, yeah, it's not a worst episode. It's more like my problem is that we, for some reason, disappeared the character who, in my opinion, made season 6 so much better than it would have been otherwise.
Mhm.
I can't figure out what happened here. She had some other minor projects in 1993, but I didn't see anything that would explain this level of absence. We learned she had a lot of issues with stage fright when we did our sidebar,
Mhm.
but even then, like, we don't have any way of knowing that, but I guess it's possible she asked to be on the screen less, but that has taken a huge leap on my part.
Mhm.
We also talked about how this season feels like playing the old hits. And since she is so new, perhaps she just didn't really fit that mold. So maybe she was just left behind. whatever the reason is, it doesn't really matter. Her lack of play this season was definitely my worst and definitely did not go unnoticed for either one of us. So.
Yeah, they really did carve her out as this unique character, and she had these unique things going on for her. She had different chemistry with different characters. Like with Anthony, they shared the college thing, and so we get to see them together sometimes. She and Mary Jo have this special kinship. I think I would have liked to have seen her with Dixie Carter a couple of times, because you could sense that Julia intimidates the character of Carlene a little bit. So I feel like there was a lot of space for all of that. They just didn't do it.
Julia intimidates the character of Salina.
Yes. Yeah.
I both like her, and am intimidated by her. So
I'm scared. Now, that said, she did have a lot of little bit parts in every episode and became almost like a Bernice in a way, like they peppered her in funny ways.
yes. And speaking of those funny ways, would now be a good time to talk about our up to 3 funniest moments?
I was hoping that would take us there.
Thank you. Even a broken clock like me can be right twice a day. So I caught on to what you're putting down.
I love it. You did great, Selena.
What you got?
The Mucinex hasn't hit you hard quite yet.
Not yet.
So I wanted to talk about episode. I have lots. I went over 3 with her, same way I did with Bernice, because again, they peppered her in throughout episodes so much that we had some really funny parts. So the first one was episode 3, Mary Jo and the Terminator. Before you speak to this woman, may I ask what you had for lunch today? Excuse me? Lunch, the midday meal. What did you have for lunch? I had the quiche Lorraine. Quiche Lorraine, which quiche is that? There's meat in it. You can talk to this woman. I get my quiches mixed up. It was when she was trying to hold off potential vegetarians from BJ. And so she went like all in trying to like pepper this person with questions, being like the rough and tumble security guard and doing it in such a Carlene way.
Right. Such a heavy,
Right. In that same episode during the billboard runner, I laughed when she took the messages on the phone. So she's got the phone like propped up on her ear and she's like, she's Satan's crafty minion. The souls of 10 million cows will be avenged. And could I tell her which vegetarian is calling? It's so cute.
It is nice to think about these little shiny moments given everything else we're talking about. For Carlene had episode 2, Sex and the Single Woman, and this interaction with Julia. Carlene says, anyway, I've learned a thing or two about old Dwayne. Did y'all notice I set the time? He's not staying at my place. And once and for all, I won't allow him to order my meat from me. Ooh, that makes me mad. Did y'all ever have to go through that? Julia, has that happened to you? No, Carlene, I've always ordered my own meat.
Well, la-ti-da, Julia. What's it like to have boundaries?
You're such a lucky gal. In episode 12, The Odyssey, in the Stinger, while they're watching the inauguration on TV and stranded in the airport, they see Carlene dancing it up there in DC after none of them made it, and much to Julia's chagrins, and she put it for Ross Perot.
It seems fitting for Carlene.
Yeah, and I don't know that was like hilarious, but like I loved it. Did you have another one? Because I don't want to cut you off.
I have a couple more, but go ahead.
Episode 15. That's right. You said you had a lot. Maybe the Mucinex is kicking in. So episode 15, New Julia, New York Morning. Carlene's attempt to cover up Julia's bare chest in the painting with the decals that Charlene sent. It's like, wasn't Peppa Pig, but it was something that sounded like similar to like back then Peppa Pig. She's so good at the physical comedy.
She is really good at that. I think actually 2 of mine I've probably mentioned either in the first episode or in Anthony's episode. So episode 6, Viva Las Vegas, when BJ says we could stop off in Albuquerque and Carlene says, stop off in Albuquerque? I can't believe your life, BJ. You talk about this like we used to talk about going to the Dairy Queen. I've never seen someone more excited about Albuquerque. And that's no offense to Albuquerque. It's just, I've never heard it before. And this was like huge for her. And I love that for her.
That's lovely.
It was nice. And then episode 10, Trial and Error, that whole Tammy Wynette thing that she goes back and forth with Etienne on the DIVORCE. I really liked that bit. And then the last one was episode 10, Trial and Error. Her pandering for gifts from BJ. So it gave us like a delightfully sly part of her personality. There was this bit where BJ threatens to stop buying gifts for the crew if it makes them uncomfortable. And Carlene says, well, now hold on. If it makes you happy, I'll be a little uncomfortable. And then throughout the idea, she's planting like little ideas for gifts, like a Whitman chocolate sampler, a hot tub, all the things.
A Whitman chocolate sampler in a hot tub, whatever it takes.
All the things, Salina. I said all the things.
Are we missing any others that you might have?
Nope, that's it.
Well, would you like to talk about the 3 cringiest or most obnoxious moments?
Sure. You talked about several things from episode 10, The Lying Game, when she learns that her boyfriend wears women's clothing sometimes. So I'm not going to rehash that, but it felt like I would be remiss not to mention it here. I actually thought it was most cringy that she pushed the chain letters in episode 11, Too Dumb to Date. That should be illegal.
Oh, you're right.
I don't want friends pushing chain letters on me.
That's a great one. Although I do think that, like, I don't know, anyone maybe just younger than us doesn't know what that
Doesn't
is.
know what a chain letter is. They know the chain emails, though, right?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe like 5 years younger than us, and then.
Yeah, well, good news. They're not listening to this podcast, so.
Don't make me laugh. It makes my throat dry.
Sorry.
Probably more obnoxious than cringy. Having sex with Dwayne in Anthony's bed. That was just clearly cringy for Anthony.
That's true.
But I think we can agree it's also pretty obnoxious. They're a little too old for that, you know?
1,152%.
Yeah, like try and don't.
I was a little aghast when I realized that she did that.
You're not 20. You're not 22. I'm like, you're not 47. Like, get it together. Everybody's got money to go get a hotel. Everybody doesn't have money to go get a hotel, and I understand that. But like, just try not to. That's why God invented couches
and floor. There's plenty of floor.
Plenty of floor.
So
That's a wonderful point.
Gosh. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That was pretty obnoxious. I'd be really annoyed at my friend for doing that.
Well, now I feel like I'm doing something obnoxious with but this was only like kinda, which was also episode 10, Trial and Error, which you've also already mentioned as funny, where she keeps hitting BJ up for gifts. Made my obnoxious list.
But 2 things can be true at one time.
That's true. I think in that case especially that might be true.
I can laugh at other people's obnoxiousness.
Yeah, I think I was like putting myself in the shoes of being in that room and being like, shut up.
Just shut up. What is wrong with you?
But like also buy me some stuff.
A hot tub.
The hot tub is good. I don't know. I need the Whitman sampler, to be honest.
I mean, I would take it.
And a sampler, I'm going to be honest, I feel like most of the time there's like 2.
So we're coming up on Valentine's Day, and I generally do not enjoy the sampler candy boxes because there are lots of those weird jelly fills and cream fills and like random fruits shoved inside a chocolate. I don't really want that. I just want like a pack of good dark chocolate.
Or I'd want like just peanuts in the chocolate would also be fine. But like,
I thought you just wanted a bucket of nuts.
Just peanuts. I mean, it does kind of sound like something I would say.
Lucky guy.
That's actually
what Valentine's Day peanuts.
That's probably what my gift will be.
I wish I had his phone number. I'm going to text him and be like, Salina just wants peanuts.
All she wants. Yeah. No, we're only required cards. And I think basically because I feel like a real butthole if I don't at least get him a card. And he already knows that when I went out to get his birthday's in late January, when I went out to get his birthday card, I went ahead and got the Valentine's Day card just to get it done, and that's also how I put it to him.
Sure. Great. Romantic. Love it.
I'm like, get this out of the way. I have other things to do. Happy Valentine's Day.
I hope Kyle appreciates that when I say things like that, because I say that crap all the time. I'm like, your birthday's coming up in a few months. Can I just go ahead and buy you something? It's just the stage of life we're in right now. Like everything's just always so crazy and chaotic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have I never feel like I have the excuses that you do, but I'm going to ride that.
I I mean, you have different
train.
excuses.
Yeah,
Just different ones.
different.
Yeah,
Different. Yeah.
different. All
But
valid, just different.
I used to also really hate Valentine's Day, so it's a huge shift for me. Huge.
I love Valentine's Day, like, a
You
lot.
just love, you
Oh, I don't
know?
know about that, that's you. You said you love love.
I
I love
love.
pink things and I love candy.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Yeah,
We'll come
that's
back
what
to
I'm
that
saying.
sometime. How about the most socially, culturally important or relevant plot?
So, we had 2 opportunities to address Carlene as an adult woman navigating, the dating world.
Mhm,
So, one was the Dwayne Dauber incident, that's what I'll call it,
mhm.
the season 7 Dwayne Dauber incident, and then the other was the lying game, so sh where she, ends up what did you say his name is?
The
No, her name was Carl. Whatever the guy's name is, she's dating that guy. Um,
Yes, I have it somewhere.
both of them ended up with her learning about some aspect of being a man. So again, BJ made that joke, like, when when Carlene says, like, she bought him dinner and then she felt like, "You owe me," and BJ's like, "Congratulations, you're now a man." And then we get Carl Lean actually being a man. But both the episodes we had about her ended up with her learning about being a man, and I just feel like there's something to that. She's out in the dating world, and both end up with her learning what it's like to be a man. I
That
don't
is
know how to articulate it other than there's something to it.
well, I didn't notice that at all, but that is very
Never
astute.
thought it.
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's perfect. I feel like I'm in a literature class, but for TV. I really like it. I love analyzing stuff like that, so I think it's wonderful.
It just
Um,
doesn't seem like it could be a coincidence, right?
it was just 2. There's 2 episodes.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
This is what I'm saying.
yeah, I think that's a great point. So with Sex and the Single Woman on that note, it's turning an old trope on its head, which is sort of like this idea women can't have sex without catching feelings, or women don't standardly use men for sex when it's so much more complicated than that. And I remember thinking this was a pretty progressive plot line for the one time that I watched it. And also, it was like very Sex in the City, even
Oh.
the name of it,
Mhm.
because they could have called that like, I'm not going to catch feelings for you and I'm just going to have sex like a man.
Mm.
That could have been at least 2 seasons of the show. Um, so I thought that was really interesting because that show doesn't premiere for like maybe 5 more years. Also, this
Oh
is a
my
good
god.
yeah,
That's a fun math exercise.
that feels good, doesn't it? Like a
How?
kick in the crotch. So the the lying game was another thing that kind of gave us a few things. By the way, the boyfriend's name was Eric. It came to
Thank
me.
you.
Came
Thank
to
you.
me. To me, this was sort of like this idea of the acceptance of queer culture, was one thing that really stood out for me. And we kind of got a temperature read on where we were in 1993.
Not accepting.
Need some time, you know? Um, maybe today
Marinating.
yeah, it's not perfect like it is today. You
Right.
know what I'm
We
saying?
got it all figured out.
Yeah, now we're fine. And then the other one that stood out to me was like the dismissal of women in business by men.
Mm.
That one client, Mr. Reynolds, he comes in at the end and yes, that's like, it's definitely over the top, but his mentality wasn't without precedence or like some grounding in reality in
Mm.
the actual world. And, he's just really short and rude with the women, but he's completely different when he thinks that Carlene's a man, making these underhanded comments. I think maybe it's BJ who says, "Oh, everything is negotiable," and he says only to a woman. And then, that doesn't make any sense. It's called business negotiations, you twerp. And then he says, "That's not very nice. I'm supposed to be gentle with all beings today."
I have great news for you, Selena. He's not a real being. You're allowed.
He's a real something.
It falls in the gray area. I'll allow it.
Well, and then later he says to Carlene, "You know how crazy it is doing business with women."
It
And
is. It's they drive a hard bargain.
they sure do. We ask for so much, we get so much. Oh, it's crazy. But did any of that kind of resonate with you? I think it kind of did for both of us.
Yes, some of those things did resonate with me, and I think that for what little bit we got of Carlene this season, at least they used those opportunities to show us some of that because it was an interesting statement on culture and where we were. I wonder how would we have that episode? So think about the Lion Game. How would we have that today? Like, what does that episode look like? Because so many of the things that they said, the business part, still, I feel like still are true.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think that's a really great question that I have zero answer for, but I think that would be a fun exercise. Or just to think like if we've seen something in a plot as of
Mhm,
late that sort of speaks to that. I think
mhm,
unfortunately the answer is no. Because I think that most sitcoms are pretty frivolous now.
mhm,
I think we talked about recently Abbott Elementary being maybe like an exception to that.
mhm,
Oh, you know what? There is an episode of The Office when Will Ferrell comes in, but it's supposed to be just pure comedy. This is after Michael Scott leaves and they're looking for a new boss and he gets a job. And then like he only surrounds himself with the men and
mhm.
comes up with like this bros club, and then you see like the women in the office react to it. And I think there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah.
So maybe we are getting some slices of it. And it does it well, honestly, it's like a little funnier. but it is, I don't think it's as I don't know it's as rewarding as the end of this episode is.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
there you go.
Lots of social and cultural there.
There you go.
What
On
about
that note, for one of our shortest episodes of all time, would you like to rate this sucker, Nikki?
Yeah. So my rating scale is Dirty Dances with Dwayne Dauber. And I'm giving it. I think Selena almost choked.
Yeah. No offense, Dwayne. You're lovely.
I am giving it 3 out of 5. So this is obviously in no way a slight against Jan Hooks or the character of Carlene. I think when all is said and done, she could be one of my favorite characters on the show. She's positive and funny. She's a sucker for pop culture. She's super wide-eyed about taking on like a whole new world after her divorce. But they really didn't give us much to work with from her this season, and I feel like that should be a federal crime. Where we left her, even when you think about the end of the season, where we left her in Gone with the Whim was playing whatever the whiny character is.
Prissy.
Like and every time she has this over the top, like she didn't even get to really bounce around and try different characters on. They just gave her the annoying one.
Right.
And like I said, there was just no redeeming elements in that one for her. That's just such a bummer way to end a season where she was a high point of season 6, so we're excited to see what she does in season 7. They give her nothing, and then they end the season with her on a mean, annoying note.
It's a weird reward for season 6, honestly.
Yeah,
You did a good job, so we'll give you less screen time
right.
and worse plot lines.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I also gave it a 3 out of 5, but I gave it a 3 out of 5 self-ordered meats.
Oh.
Yep. Not a lot to play with here. It's like I was like between the name of the episode and the rating scale, I was like, whew,
we really did what we could.
you guys are exhausting me. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're in a similar place here. It's just very, for me, I did more of a very in limbo score because 3 is kind of like that middle ground to
Mhm,
just where her character's trajectory is. I agree. It's not some sort of commentary on the character of
mhm,
Carlene. We somewhat know she's still on that season 6 trajectory with the things that we were doing last season, but there's nothing new, there's nothing different. There's not even anything concrete by the end of the season, honestly. So it just kind of feels a little bit like a waste. I don't mean to make it so negative, but it is.
mhm,
So, I mean, but I think even like when we talked about Jan Hooks, the one thing that I took away from one of the main pieces I read was like that she was so immensely talented. And because of all the things that she was facing in her personal life,
mhm.
a lot of that talent did not get exercised to the full extent that it should have been. So it is sort of reflective, I think, of her career as a whole. So I wanted to bring it all the way down and then kick it.
But the good news is you probably have a super positive and exciting extra sugar for this week. So
I do have an extra sugar for this week with both highs and lows. And you know what we call that, Nikki? Real life. Does that mean you want me to say what it's about?
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll just knock that out. So there is a very brief mention of women's suffrage, but specifically Southern suffragists in the top of the episode. I think it's Eric who mentions it. He's like gives Julia a book or something. And so we decided to take that and parlay that into a segment where we would dig into the women's movement for the right to vote, also known as suffragism. So I did a really good job there.
Just plain language, that is all.
I sure did. And added an ism to it for some reason. Don't worry. Again, I'm going to point back to I'm on cold medicine. So it'll make for a great segment. Come back.
It'll be exciting. One way or the other, it's going to be exciting. So our next main episode next week is going to be about Mary Jo, right?
Yes, I want to say yes.
That sounds good.
Yes.
Mary Jo.
Yes. We know things.
We know things.
We planned this season.
Yeah, it's in a document somewhere. Mary Jo. So in the meantime, we'd love everyone to follow along with us and engage. Instagram and Facebook at Sweet Tea and TV, TikTok at Sweet Tea TV Pod. We're on YouTube at Sweet Tea TV 7371. Our email address is sweetteatvpod@gmail.com, and our website is www.sweetteatv.com. There's several ways you can support the show. You can tell your family and friends about us, rate and review the podcast wherever you listen, and then there's a support us tab on the website.
Well, you know what that means, Nikki.
What does it mean, Salina?
It means come back on Thursday for a really positive, upbeat segment with me and Nikki. Okay. See you then.
Bye.